Good morning. Welcome to the Legislative Administration Subcommittee on Legislative Youth Advisory Council. Would you please stand up so we could do the pledge? Representative Nelson, would you like to lead?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Caucus at noon and session starting at 1. Today, we're going to look at current law for the LIAC, the proposed bill, and the changes to the bill. In looking through current law and some of the reports that have been filed already for LIAC, we've noticed that a lot of times the reports were off topic. We're going to look at the application process, hoping to revamp that so there's a bigger pool to choose from of members. We're going to look at membership and most importantly, we've noticed even in testimony that right now the committee is operating outside of the law. So we need to fix that and make sure we're following the law. All right, so Rep. Hobson, would you like to point out some issues that you saw that are right now off topic in regards to the reporting?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So trying to find my paperwork. Well, just going off of the RSA, Legislative Youth Advisory Council is established to examine issues of importance to youth, such as education, employment, strategies to increase youth participation in local and state government, safe environments for youth, substance abuse. I'm sorry, maybe I don't need to go through all that, but I didn't see, I saw a lot of focus on social issues, climate change, which is not a problem. But I feel like what they're tasked with is looking at issues that we have statistics on: poverty, homelessness. I can't say that word today for emotional and physical health. So anyway, I kind of felt like they were off topic. I didn't see a lot of reports about that. And I don't know if you have input on that, Jody, being a, yeah.
Are these reports like prior reports that have been, thank you for the question. Do I have to say that? No, committee, okay. I don't know. This is my first formal subcommittee, so I don't know. Thank you. I do know that in the past that has been an issue where there were very partisan committees. This committee has been more focused on having a diverse amount of topics, like what you are talking about, to research and discuss. If you may, I can actually bring up on my phone the subcommittees that these guys are working with now, and I think that you'll realize that the topics have been expanded. I agree with you that it really, going forward, we need to really concentrate on those types of issues.
Can I just bring up one point? So I was thinking of this list that I just found. They broke into interest groups: climate action, criminal justice, education, legislative administration, and social justice. That, to me, seems outside of what the RSA indicates they should be focused on. So I don't know if everybody else has that opinion.
Just like to point out to the committee, the very first sentence: a Legislative Youth Advisory Council is established to examine issues of importance to youth. That's where there should be a period. Then there are examples the previous statement, examine issues of importance to youth, opens the door for everything under the sun. The others are simply examples. It doesn't lock them into doing that. So 2 years from now, there may be other things they want to talk about that are happening at that time in the world. The way it's written right now, they have that ability. They're not off topic. They simply change the topics.
Mr. Tebow, I saw you raise your hand. Would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is James Tebow. I'm the youth co-chair of the Legislative Youth Advisory Council, serving alongside Representative Nelson. So I just wanted to say, first of all, the reports that you're looking at are a couple years old. Those are no longer, well, we call them subcommittees now. They're no longer interest groups. But those are outdated. We have several more this year that are, and they're more, well, we treat ourselves as nonpartisan. We don't like getting into partisan politics, but we also try to focus more on issues that are more unifying. And there's been a really heavy focus this year on education policy and mental health as well, and other issues of that nature that are addressed in RSA 19K1. So I realize we've been outside of the statute in the past, and that's something that we've been working to correct,
Great, thank you.
of course.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this topic? Okay, thank you. We will make that note to maybe change that first sentence there. We'd like to talk about the application process. How do we get our pool, and how can we do a better job at making sure that we're getting a wide variety of applicants?
I think that we have in our bill some additions that would be very helpful. We have asked for additional support from either staffing from the Senate side or the House side to help us develop a website. We've also, James has also had the idea of making it the responsibility of the Department of Ed to disseminate information about the Legislative Advisory Council to all schools and be able to provide an application to all schools to spread the word. That it has been a challenge for us this year. We've tried our best to do that. There's work to be done, and we think, those two examples, and maybe James can elaborate on that, would be extremely helpful in being able to provide a bigger pool of applicants. We also have a challenge, and you can talk about this if you are called upon, James, of finding university students, and we need to tap more into our university clubs, the university Democrats and university Republicans to have a better pool to choose from as well.
Do you think it would be worth just making it high school?
I do think that it would be beneficial to reduce the amount of university students. However, I do see that the university students do provide a certain level of maturity and experience that I think is of value to the entire council. I do think that it's not a good idea to completely eliminate college students, and I think the college students also feel that it brings value to them, they're able to bring back the knowledge and experience that they have gained through the council to their school communities. I think that's very valuable too. I do agree, though, that it's difficult, number one, to find college, to fill all of the college spots, and recruiting is difficult. It's, it's not as easy as asking the DOE to, disseminate information about it. So I do agree.
And so is the makeup, does it say how many post-secondary and secondary students?
Yes.
So you would want to lower the post-secondary youth?
I think
To-
so.
to
And I
make it
think
easier?
James might be able to provide a little more info on that.
Yes, James?
Sure. So as of right now, there's provisions made for 12 secondary student seats and 7 post-secondary student seats. So in the amendments that I emailed to you all before the hearing, that would be reduced to 4. And we do absolutely believe that they provide extraordinary value, but they are hard to recruit for because they just have a lot busier lives than we do in high school, but they do provide tremendous value. So today with us is Rebecca Leak, one of our members who attends college online with Liberty University, and she is actually a pre-law student. So she has a lot of experience in this field already, and she has a lot of knowledge that she brings to the table that we simply do not have as high schoolers. So that sort of resource is incredibly valuable to us, and to take that away, I believe, would be short-sighted. And so I'm in communication with, I believe, 5 other states' legislative youth advisory councils, and that's actually a provision that I made in the bill, is a mandate to communicate with other states. But in talking with them, they seem less focused and they seem to have less experience because they are mostly high school groups. We are unique in that we are the only LIAC in the country that I'm aware of that has college students represented. And I think that's incredibly important, especially when addressing education issues.
Rep. Hobson?
Thank you for taking my question.
Absolutely.
So if there are no other legislative youth advisory councils in the state, who do you look to communicate with? You mentioned just a sentence ago that you wanted to reach out to other groups in the country. A mandate, did you say?
Yeah, so there's a mandate in this bill. So as the statute currently reads, it says that we are tasked in our duties with communicating. It says, it just kind of says other committees. It doesn't really clarify what that means.
Okay.
But I've expanded that to say, hang on, let me pull it up. Yeah, so the current language is communicate with other councils, but I've expanded that to say communicate with other councils and committees, including but not limited to House and Senate committees, the State Board of Education, the Governor's Youth Advisory Council on Substance Misuse and Prevention, other New Hampshire Youth Advisory Councils as formed,
Okay.
and then other states' youth advisory councils. And that would be RSA 19K3, paragraph 5.
Okay. Thank you.
Of
I
course.
just want a clarification on that.
I also saw that you were thinking of having the Department of Education be the ones that do like reaching out to public schools, public charter schools. How do you plan to reach homeschool groups or private religious schools?
That's a very good point, and I would love to have some ideas from you folks if you.
As far as the private schools, for example, Catholic schools and all that, they still technically come under the DOE. So the DOE, when they send something out to public high schools, they can send it out at the same time to any of the private high schools that they monitor, which should be all of them. The homeschoolers, there's something on the internet where they're working back and forth and talking to DOE, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right, just because in my experience with my children being in public school, homeschoolers are allowed to join extracurricular activities and sports. So there has to be a way that information is communicated. We would just have to find that out for sure.
So that would probably all fall under the Department of Education then. Okay. Yep.
The DOE also keeps track of homeschool students. They have to keep, the homeschool parents have to file a letter of intent, and there has to be some goals met along the way. So they actually would have access to, I think, to all students in New Hampshire. So,
Did you have something to say, James? No? Okay. Yes, Red Janik.
Back a few moments ago, you said you're having difficulty getting college kids. I don't know if you know the answer to this. I don't know if anybody does. Is there a college young Republicans and young Democrats at, say, UNH, at Franklin Pierce, any of the other colleges in the state?
Sure. I do have connections with the New Hampshire Federation of College Republicans. I mean, I tend to lean more conservative myself,
Okay.
to be completely transparent, but I'm sure there are other people on the council that have those connections with the college Democrats as well. And I would be happy to work with both groups to try to get that outreach out because I think it would be incredibly effective and successful to do so.
What I'm thinking is if those entities were approached, they could appoint somebody from their own group, still go through the application process and all that, but they could appoint somebody from their group as, you know, we'd like this one to be on there. And if you're proposing to go down to 4 post-secondaries, if you work to make sure that it is 2 and 2 from
Right.
4 different colleges or whatever, then fine and dandy.
I actually think that's an interesting idea because I know I reached out to the college Republicans and I think that you did too. And did you or did and I mean they're great and very nice people and willing to help out. But I think if there's buy-in to that, that they would be more willing to be like cooperative and in trying to find applicants, you know? So thank you. I think that's a good suggestion.
Yes, James.
Now, would that mean that every single college seat would have to be filled by one of those two groups? Because I feel like there should be opportunity for, because right now it adds the provision, or as it's currently written in law, it can be anyone for 15 to 22 who is either in college or in the workforce. If they're in the workforce, they can't be represented by college Republicans or college Democrats or college, yeah.
That's a whole different
Yeah.
word out to them.
Yeah.
Or like even career schools as well, because they
Career
wouldn't have, because right now it says RSA 19K2, post-secondary students or post-secondary youth may attend a 2 or 4-year New Hampshire college, university, private post-secondary career school, or other New Hampshire training or education program, or be a member of the New Hampshire workforce. And we were looking to expand that further, actually, in the amendments that I sent out, because we have students like Rebecca who attend online school with a school that is technically not a New Hampshire college because she attends with Liberty University, which is based out of Virginia. So technically, she's in like a legal gray area because she's a New Hampshire student because she lives here, but she doesn't attend a New Hampshire college.
Right. So
technically.
right now, you're currently operating outside of the law. So that's why it's important to.
Exactly. Well, we didn't realize that at the time when she was
Right.
appointed by, I believe, Speaker Packard.
Okay.
We only realized that after the fact.
Right.
But
Right.
that's why we're looking to make the amendment.
Absolutely. Yeah. Could we call up Rebecca? Absolutely. Good morning. Rep. Hobson, did you want to ask a question? Thanks.
Good morning. I just wanted to find out what brought you to the Legislative Youth Advisory Council, and what has your experience been, and do you have any recommendations as a college student?
So I heard about LIAC from a friend of mine who he heard about it from his state reps. So I honestly almost didn't apply because I did read the statute and I'm not certain I actually fit into these categories, but I went ahead and applied anyway, and so was appointed. So I'm not sure what else here.
How's your experience been?
It's been incredible. I've learned so much, and it's been great to be able to see more deeply into how our laws are written and passed, and been able to have some sort of voice in that, and also been able to meet so many other young people that I would have never been able to meet and discuss issues with them.
I had another question for you. What value do you believe the college student perspective provides?
As James said, I think college students are a little older, so they do have a little bit more, hopefully, a little bit more maturity. Like he said, I personally have drawn on my legal and governmental courses from college and my work in LIAC, looking at issues and discussing issues. So I do think they add a good deal to the committee council. I mean.
Okay, thank you.
Rep. Nelson, do you find that you're unable to fill all the positions right now? Or do you have so many applications that a lot of them aren't even
Yes,
at?
we are having difficulty, particularly again in the post-secondary applicants.
So it's
And-
just that area?
James,
Sure. I have a spreadsheet of all of our vacancies and members as well as our applicants. So for reference, last year we had 41 applicants. This year we had 12. 12. And that was just enough to fill all of our secondary vacancies because we had a lot of seniors leaving last year as well as students who kind of went MIA. And there is a provision in the law that says after 3 meetings, or 3 absences consecutively, they are removed from the council. So we removed them and replaced them with actual committed members. And as of right now, we have a 3 post-secondary vacancies and 2 secondary vacancies. And a couple of those, or the post-secondary vacancy, one of them is with the Secretary of State's office, and that issue has kind of cropped up because his deputy informed us that she would not appoint anyone to the council who did not go directly to the Secretary of State's office requesting appointment. So anyone who applies through our application that we send them, because we solicit and then send them out, because that's just the most effective way to go about advertising. Anyone we send, she said she will not appoint. And so for that's why we wanted to have the application process codified into law, is because then we have one application, we send out all the applications to all of the appointers, they coordinate with each other to make the appointments, and then they just get sent out around the same time. And that will make it far more effective and will prevent stuff like this from happening where we have vacancies that we literally can't fill because they don't want to, or they don't know to go to the Secretary of State's office rather than through our application that we already have.
Do you think that it would be better system if there was the appointments coming from one, like, just say, what if all the appointments came from the Speaker of the House?
yes, I think that would be great if there was one central appointing location or point person. To James' credit, he tried to contact somebody who was one of the originators of the bill to find out what the intent was. by having the different folks appoint the people, and he was unable to get an answer despite his repeated requests. So, you know, I think that our intent wouldn't be to say we don't like your help and it's not that we don't appreciate you, but the process is very onerous and very frustrating. And James has done a very good job of keeping up and following up with the various folks who are the appointers. So, but it's difficult, and I agree, having one central, person do it
Right,
would
so all
be
the
so much
applications would
easier.
go to the speaker and he would make the appointments. And
Yes.
I know that there was some concern that if the appointments didn't come from different bodies, then maybe you wouldn't have the access to say this to the Senate or to the governors. But if just the Speaker of the House handled the appointments, and you would still have access to those other bodies through legislation that you're following.
Yes, yes. My only concern, and maybe we can address this, with an amendment, is that our goal this year was to have almost as equal of a mix of political ideologies as we could, because our goal, one of our personal goals, my personal goal, and James also shares it, is that we need to facilitate young people to be able to get together and express their own opinions and ideas and have respect for other people's opinions and ideas. And I think that's very needed right now in our society. And if we can encourage that in a healthy manner with these young people, I think they'll be really great, well-rounded leaders. I'm confident that all these, I call them kids, I'm sorry, guys. All these young people are gonna be really great leaders. So, that would be my only concern about having one point person, you know, and in the application process versus an appointment process, you know, we don't, you know, you can kind of like discern through, you know, their extracurricular activities and, you know, an essay that they might write, you know, where they kind of lean, you know, one way or another. It certainly wouldn't be, you know, a deal breaker as to, you know, why we may or may not, you know, think about appointing someone, but that would be my concern. You know, if we have a speaker who wants to have an entirely partisan, I mean, one way or another, I'm not picking on, you know, Republican or Democrat, group, that is not going to be, what the goal of LIAC should be, I guess is my.
Sure, and I would agree with Representative Nelson on all of those points, and I would also say that having multiple appointers reduces the strain on each of the appointers, because then they don't have to make all of these different appointments. I mean, the Speaker of the House, I've been in communication with his office trying to get a new appointment made, and it's been a couple months now just because he's so busy. I mean, he has like 400 commissions and committees and councils to appoint to. It's a lot for just him. So having it split up also helps with that. And I think that there is some value to having multiple appointers, and also the partisan mix that can come with that being, you know, 4 different people. And maybe 4 is too much, but I think it should be like at least maybe the speaker and the Senate president or something like that.
Absolutely, yes, Rep. Nelson.
An idea just popped into my head, maybe, in order to aid, the speaker, could there be a nominating committee consisting of, um, 1 or 2 people from, each side of the aisle that could assist the speaker in recommending, applicants?
Or as we're talking about, maybe having the youngest member of the majority party, the youngest member of the minority party, would they be able to
Oh,
assist?
yeah. Yeah, they could be able to parse through that, yeah.
Rep. Tierney?
If you want to really keep it simple, all the applicants could be given a number as their application comes in. Those numbers are put into a fishbowl and you make it real quick. And you make the choices. Very, very simple. You will get, maybe, sometimes you will get a right-leaning LIAC. Sometimes you may get a left-leaning one, but odds are you're going to get a fairly Midland one.
I don't think that's very fair because it doesn't, it's not a merit-based system. It's not a system that accounts for a student who may be very well experienced and have that sort of already legislative experience that's going to contribute to membership on LIAC. And you might have some kids who are just in it for the resume building and who don't actually care getting appointed.
And you're absolutely right. And one thing to consider as a legislator, that's exactly what your constituents will be. From all over the place. Some will be interested, some won't. Some will vote their pocketbook, some won't. That's, no offense, that's the real world. That's the way it really is. And yes, you may want all gung-ho people in there at the beginning, but you also want the one that sits back. Every now and then, their light bulb goes off and they pop up with a very good idea.
Fair enough.
Put you down for the fishbowl approach.
Nelson, did you? Okay. Um,
Oh,
yes. Did you have something? So, Representative McDonald and Representative Williams, did you have anything, any input on any of these subjects that we just spoke about?
Wheeler.
All the work
Wheeler-
we're
Wheeler.
assigning to you.
Not particularly, although I'd say I think it might be a good idea to have one appointer, just because I think that might streamline the process. And, you know, with the appointment system as it is right now, there could be and is a Republican Senate president, a Republican governor, and a Republican Speaker of the House who, you know, might want to appoint. I mean, so I think that concern exists whether or not there's one appointer or multiple appointers. I met Jessica. I came into this thinking, you know, oh, we should have less post-secondary people on the committee, but after talking to Rebecca, excuse me, I do feel that post-secondary people have a place on the committee and are, you know, could help the committee in an interesting way. I guess it's just how we outreach to the schools and get people to want to be involved. So I'd add, you know, getting people, having the council do meetings at the different schools, or getting people like Valerie and I to go there or something like that and talk about LIAC and what it could do, you know, just sort of advertising LIAC and trying to get people to know what it is and want to do it.
Thank you, Representative Valerie McDonald, Rockingham 25, for the record. And I would have to agree with a lot of what my colleagues said. I think it is important that the nominations come from a central place so it can be streamlined. I know there was a mention as a website, and the website could explain exactly where prospective applicants need to go, whether it's the speaker or another nominating body. I also think there is a value in the post-secondary members, as one of the members here today has stated their own value in what they contribute as a college student. And that is unique to New Hampshire, as for my understanding, that the other legislative youth advisory councils in other states are limited to just high school students. And New Hampshire has benefited from not having that limitation, as far as I am aware. And as for the idea of the nominating committee to make that bipartisan, I think that there is some value in that idea as well, because as Representative Wheeler mentioned, there is right now a partisan balance in leadership. And to ensure that this is not a partisan group, because the intention is to encompass all youth viewpoints to really be reflective of the younger generation, that we need to not have that partisan split. So if there were to be a nominating committee, perhaps with younger legislators, I think we would be both open to that idea. And thank you for asking for our input.
Thank you.
Hello. I just have a couple questions for you. And before we get started, I just,
I'm just incredibly impressed by the two of you. When you speak at the well, you are always so thoughtful and thank you for serving because when I was your age, the last thing that I was interested in was what you are doing. And I really, I mean, I think you guys are fabulous. So I wanted to say that first of all. I do think the idea of having young representatives from, one from each side is of value, certainly. I know myself coming in as a freshman when I was in my 50s, with all of my life experience, it was still very overwhelming to be a freshman. So want this to be a I want it to be a positive experience for the legislative co-chairs as well as the youth who are participating in this council. So wondering what your thoughts would be on how the youth co-chairs, the legislative co-chairs, what your thoughts on managing your time, and what support do you think would be valuable to be provided to you should you be the legislative co-chairs?
Thank you for the question, Representative Nelson. And I think it is valuable. I know I, for one, certainly learn from my more experienced colleagues every day when I am in the chamber. And to perhaps have someone such as yourself as the legislative co-chair in addition to the two younger members could be an idea.
Yeah, that's something that we did discuss, having like a tri-chair
Yeah.
position with the two youngest and like a more seasoned legislator, like
Like
Rep-
almost like an advisory
Yes.
role.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think sounds great.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'd just add, I think it'd be a good thing for the young legislators, Valerie and I were talking, and the Representative McDonald and I were talking in the hall, about experience and how, if you're a young legislator or freshman, you don't often get the chance to chair a committee or even one of those subcommittees, Representative McDonald and I we are on busy committees that get a lot of subcommittees and work sessions and stuff like that. As freshmen, as young freshmen, we don't always get picked to be the chair of those subcommittees. And I think that chairing a subcommittee for a freshman, and I've talked to Representative Mannion and other people about this, that's an important educational piece to sort of understanding the legislative process and knowing how to hold respect as a chair and do those things. So I think it could be definitely beneficial for the younger members of the legislature, just as a system in general, to offer them the chance to chair the LIAC committee and get them some experience and involved in the legislature more so than the two of us already are.
Very good
Absolutely.
point. Thank you.
Thank you for taking my question. One of the amendments that's been proposed, it would be not a freshman, it would be a sophomore. So somebody at least in their second term. And do you feel it would be better to have a tri-chair? Or should there just be somebody who's been in the House for, let's say, they're on a fourth term or a fifth term as the advisor, the one who will know all the ways a various bill moves and what moves you can't make and what routes you've got to be the advisor? And should that person be a voting member or just an advisory member?
I think having an older member as an advisory member would be a good thing, and just because it is the LIAC, I think it would be a good thing to have them as an advisory member just to make sure things stay on track, that we comply with the RSA as it's set out, and sort of leaving it to the young people to participate in the committee itself, but having that sort of crutch there as a fourth or fifth year term person to rely on.
Rep. Nutting Wong, did you have anything to add?
Not necessarily. I just saw that the two youngest members would be on there, and I was a little nervous just because you're leading a new group of people to like through the process. You might not necessarily know what it is. You two are incredibly knowledgeable, but I'm afraid of like the next class. Like eventually you're going to get someone who might not be as knowledgeable or not as willing to go up to the well to figure out what the process is. So that was the only thing that made me nervous. But
Well, I think if I could, in response to that, that's kind of my idea around having us as chairs, because, like you said, we are involved with the process. We're on two busy committees, so we've been thrown into the fire. But as not every younger member might be thrown into the fire. They might be a working member or someone like that who just sort of is on fish and game, doesn't participate as much. I think this could be a good thing for them if they were to be that, younger freshman, because then it sort of gets them involved in the process, gets them, they don't have to go up to the well, but they can still speak as chair. They can understand the process of, I think it would level out their anxieties about being representative a little bit more if they were able to chair a committee like LIAC that dealt with those kind of issues.
yeah, and I definitely understand the benefit to that member, but I'm like afraid of what the members of the committee will have to not necessarily deal with, but if they don't know like how a committee goes because they're just the first time.
Well, I think that's
So that was
the
just my
benefit of
concern,
the-
but I'm fine with it either way. I'm not gonna say no, just pointing it out.
I do think that you have a valid point. And that was one thing that I had been also thinking about. What happens if the youngest people don't want to do it, right? And if they feel forced to do it, is there a way out, of that?
If I may, perhaps in the statutory language, it could say the youngest member or their designee, and that would leave it open if the member was not willing to. At least from my experience, I was unaware that I was the youngest member prior to assuming the role. So I could picture that there would be the next youngest member thrown into that, not realizing they have another duty and they may not be
Yes.
wanting to or unprepared to, and in that case could be a designee. But I think the youngest member or should be the first choice, and then if they're unavailable, maybe another person is appointed, and the statute could explain that as well.
Or make it the youngest member willing to accept versus the youngest member designee. It'd be youngest member willing to accept. That would be it. But as far as the other question that you asked concerning the, if we didn't have these two on as the sophomores, that would be the role then for the advisor to fill in and guide two folks that, let's say, just weren't up to this bar. They were at a slightly lower one to take over and handle things until the two co-chairs at that time started to step up.
And that's the idea of the tri-chair, right?
Well, not so much tri-chair.
Co-chairs with an
It's,
advisor.
yeah,
So make it instead of-
co-chairs with an advisor.
Okay.
I agree. I think that, yeah.
Advisor or mentor. Great. Anything else on this subject? Yes?
I just wanted to ask what people's thoughts were and also give my input on, I know that there has been discussion about do we think that the Senate member, the non-voting Senate member is of value or not of value to this committee? I would suggest having a Senate member be also in an advisory role. I know that when we have spoken as a group, we find value in having a senator be in an advisory type of role because the young people are very interested in Senate bills as well as House bills, and that person is a valuable source of information on the bills and when they're going to be heard. And so without that piece, I think that this group is going to be missing an important piece of the pie of understanding and being able to provide input to the entire process.
I fully agree with that. And especially since you seem to have now a senator that is very interested in it, if you can keep that individual, if that individual would volunteer for the next 2 years, that would be good. But yes, a senator should be on it. And I don't think the Senate president needs to appoint somebody other than the Senate member, but they don't have to appoint the kids. Pardon me, but anybody between 14 and 22, I have grandchildren that age. They're kids. I'm sorry. No offense.
I just have to say, this is, I really enjoy the time spent with this senator because we're both hockey moms, and there's a kinship with another hockey mom that's is hard to find. So anyway, she's great. I really, and I think she's a very warm individual. You know, she's also a Democrat, so I think it's a good mix between the two of us, you know, so.
Great. Is there anything else that you two would like to add?
No. Thank you
Okay,
for your time.
thank you. James, would you like to speak?
Sure. I just wanted to follow up on what Representative Nelson just said regarding the partisanship aspect. That's something that I included in my amendments, is that I think there should be, if we have it appointed from the House, the Speaker should appoint someone from the majority party in the House, and then the Senate President should appoint someone from the opposite party. And I think it's important to have that balance, because in the past, that hasn't always been the case. We've had 2 Democrat members and no Republicans there. So having that balance, I think, is incredibly important.
Yeah.
Rep. Cheney?
Question for you. You said earlier in your testimony that you've got vacancies right now that you
Yes.
haven't been able to fill. Yet, in your amendment,
Mhm.
you're looking to expand the size of the commission.
Yes,
Do-
so I can
Well, the
clarify.
question I got for you basically is, do you need that size, 20 to 20, for the younger folks, 20 of them? Or could, you've got, what, I think you said 4 vacancies. Would 16 work? Would there be enough people, in your opinion, for the discussion to be worthwhile?
So I will say that we have applicants for those positions. We're just working through the process to get them appointed. Again, session is happening, so it's a much longer timeline than was pre-session. But in terms of expanding the size of the council, we are and we aren't. So we're not adding any new voting members. We're adding 1 member from the Governor's Youth Advisory Council on Substance Misuse and Prevention to act as a liaison between the 2 councils, because they work a lot more with the executive branch. They don't have the legislative experience that we do. So they would and I serve on both councils. So I know that they would benefit from the experience that LIAC can provide. And I know that LIAC would provide or would benefit from a lot of the knowledge and experience on the issue of substance misuse and prevention that the Governor's Council can provide. So that's more just to ensure that the 2 councils can communicate with each other. And in my amendment, I also included, it says any youth advisory council established by executive order, in case whoever the next governor is decides to abolish that council but may create a new one. So it provides that option and that future proofing.
Excuse me.
Okay, and the liaison, that should be an appointment by the
The
governor,
governor.
since it's his council, he should do that one appointment.
Yes, and that's and it also says elected by the membership of the council. So the governor's council can select their own designee, but then the governor officially appoints that person.
Yep.
Can, hi, it's a little off top. Well, it's on topic, but it's a little off topic to exactly what we're speaking about. But would it be okay if we just spoke again about the college applicants? There are two things that I wanted to address about that, and it also it's also pertaining to operating outside of the law.
Yes.
So I think that this RSA obviously was written before we had online school. And so I think we need to make a change that says, that reflects what Rebecca's situation is, a New Hampshire resident going to school, being I think the intent was that the kids are here, right? So they're not going to be a student at Georgetown and only coming here for 2 or 3 meetings, right? So I think that was the intent, if, uh, of the original language. So we have, I think that we should rewrite the language a little bit to make somebody in Rebecca's case, legal.
Agreed, that should be done, but don't limit it to that. Day students, I've got no idea how many colleges might be close to the Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, New Hampshire border. But if there are day students that cross over, go to school there, but are home basically every night, they should be able to do it just as much as the online students can, because they're still basically still living here in the state.
I think we have a residency requirement. They have to be residents of New Hampshire.
Yeah,
know.
that's what I was
Yeah.
wondering. Resident, yeah, just as long as they're residents of New Hampshire, they can be taking courses online or
Yeah.
over the border. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, thank you. I think that's a really good point. And then also, I don't remember, so it wasn't that important.
James?
So in the amendment language I wrote, youth members must be permanent legal residents of the state of New Hampshire unless they are attending boarding school within the state of New Hampshire during their entire tenure on the council, in which case they must be permanent legal residents of the United States. Post-secondary youth may attend a 2 or 4-year New Hampshire college, university, private post-secondary career school, or other New Hampshire training or education program, or be a permanent legal resident of the state of New Hampshire, either taking online college classes with a college based in another state, attending college in a state contiguous to the state of New Hampshire, or be a member of the New Hampshire workforce.
Good.
Section 19K2 of the amended version.
You have, okay. And James, thank you for, as we know, we received this bill from OLS that came in a way that we are not used to working with. And James actually did bold and italicize additions, and I really appreciate the hard work that he did to do that. That's made it easier for me. And I've been working with this bill, so I imagine that it's really difficult for you guys to discern what's new and what's not. So thank you.
Yeah. Could I just go into this topic real quick? I'd like to know how you identify the LSRs and the bills of interest. Does the whole committee look over the LSRs and see which ones are of interest to your council, or how do you go about doing that?
Sure. Yeah, that's something that we do. We go through, once the LSRs come out, we go through the list and we just add them to a spreadsheet, and then we just start following them from there. We reach out to sponsors, try to get information on them as the LSRs come out. But we also, and then of course we determine if we want to continue to pursue those bills after the bill text has been released, because an LSR title doesn't exactly tell you that much. But so like we identify, okay, these are the issues of interest. This is what we're going to establish our subcommittees around based on, where the clusters of topics are. And then we determine, once the bill text comes out, okay, these are the bills we're actually going to pursue. And so the LSRs just kind of give us a good idea of what our starting point for the year is going to be.
Yes.
I think it's also important to point out that each individual on the council has a say in what they are interested in. So it's not just one or two people in the group deciding. Each person gives input on LSRs and then bills that they want to investigate more. So every person on the committee has a say on what they're researching and giving input on.
Okay. Is there any merit to just doing a broad sweep over LSRs and then delve more deeply into them after they go to the second branch? Like, because a lot of times bills go through one body and they never make it past crossover. Is there any merit in just looking at things broadly and then really delving into them when they get to the second body?
Oh, I don't think so. I think one of the things that we focus a lot on in LIAC is making recommendations to the committees on whether or not we think a bill should be OTP or ITL. And ideally, I mean, in theory, that should have some merit. And I think there's absolutely merit to the experience of testifying before a committee. So I think that if we wait until crossover, I think that strips us of a lot of what we can do from January to like April, which is like nearly half our council year. So I don't think there's any merit to that, to be honest with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So can you tell me what your process is to decide what bills to testify on? Do you guys take a vote on particular bills and who decides who speaks on a bill?
Sure, I can walk you through that. At the beginning of the year, we selected all of the LSRs we were interested in, and then we created subcommittees. And those subcommittees meet over Zoom. We discuss what bills that we like or dislike, and then those subcommittees vote on whether or not we want to recommend those bills OTP or ITL. And then those recommendations get drafted by someone in the subcommittee and then brought to the entire council. We vote on the recommendation, and if the recommendation passes, then whoever authors that statement can choose to testify if they want to. And that, of course, depends on their own schedule. And if not, we can always send someone else who might be interested. But they don't have to testify. And if not, we just send the statement to the committee chair and the members of the committee. If if the statement fails, we then redraft a new one based on whatever motion is made in its place.
That, how would you decide, say you have a split committee, is everything that you testify on a unanimous decision? Or
If
what if
it's
you've got, you know,
So if it's split, the minority can choose to write a minority report, which will be sent along with the committee statement or the council statement. They don't have to, but they can choose to. So if they choose not to, then then it goes to the committee without dissent, really.
just ask this because it's related.
Mhm.
So I saw the testimony come in. I also saw in the statements, a committee report or a minority report. With your testimony, if there was a minority report, would it have come in with that
Um,
to the committee of
which
the
state?
House?
HB 1080, the statement on
I
that?
don't remember which particular bill it was, but I
Um,
did see a minority report, and I'm wondering,
So
what does the committee at the House get? Does it get both of
it,
those?
sh- it
I
should
only
get
saw a testimony
it
in
should get
favor.
it should get both. Granted, what you have in front of you, like I said, is older. And that was at a time when the council was more ideologically skewed, and I was not in leadership at the time, so I do not know. I do not know exactly what they were sending to the committees. Yeah, of course.
This question is basically to the committee. Are we drafting an RSA to figure out how to get the people onto it? If there should be any guidelines, what their duties are? Or are we going to try to micromanage it and tell them this is how you will operate? Because that I don't think we should do. We shouldn't tell them how to operate. That's what the advisor, the mentor, should be somewhat guiding, but it actually should be the younger folks figuring out how the system works and what the rules are, and then proceed that way without putting it in statute.
Taken, yes.
I agree. The intent of our amendment was really to create a framework and a guideline to pass the torch to the next advisory council. So there's a consistency and, like we talked about, quite frankly, there was a breakdown in the council and we really had to have a period of rebuilding. So it's important to us to, like we said, have this certain framework to set the next council up for success. But I 100% agree with you. That's the way that it is run now. And I would like to have it continued that way too. Thank you for your input.
Yes.
And to that point, I think it is absolutely the first two. It's about application and it's about creating a new structure because there are new additions to it that I think are very important, such as, and especially in the amendments that I drafted, providing high school credit for high school members, allowing for or saying explicitly that the legislative co-chair will draft letters of excusal so those absences don't count against the student to encourage them to come. Staff assistance from the Speaker of the House's office or the President of the Senate to, set up video conferencing or meeting scheduling or a website, as Representative Nelson alluded to earlier. Members of LIAC on the State Board of Education. Many other states have students on their state boards of education. New Hampshire does not at the moment, even though we have a statutory requirement for students to be on all the local school boards. So this would be a very easy way to integrate students onto the State Board of Ed, and as well as adding structure in other ways, like explaining what our annual seminar is supposed to be by saying it includes a tour of the State House and guidelines on the on parliamentary procedure, that sort of thing, and explaining the subcommittee process in legislation so that they future committees know what to do. And so this is really a bill that's just meant to make future chairs' lives easier, future members' lives easier, and it has the support of the council as it currently stands as well. And that's why I drafted it with Representative Nelson.
Student members on local school boards. Are you saying that's in this one now, or that's currently law that there have to be?
Oh, yeah, that's current law that was passed, I believe, last year or the year before. But yeah, so every local school board must have a student member, and so all this adds says that 2 LIAC members would serve as student representatives to the State Board of Ed.
Is that an elected member or is it an advisory member? Because I won't tell you the youngest person on our school board, but they're definitely not in high school.
So then in
That's
that case,
Our student member on the school board obviously is a non-voting member. They are appointed by
no.
their school?
No. So,
No, okay.
So this is actually something I've been researching because I'm drafting a bill on this exact topic right now. Because this is what I do with my free time. So yeah, shocker, I know. But no. So as it's currently written, student government organizations are supposed to be the ones to draft the rules for students to elect their student member. So, but unfortunately, that is very inconsistent among districts because they just don't really care enough. They're not aware of it. And the fact that your school board does not have a student member means that they're currently in violation of statute because they're probably just not aware that it's statutory. So it is supposed to be an elected member from this by the students, and it's supposed to be a non-voting member as well.
Since you're knowledgeable on this, okay, non-voting,
Mhm.
non-pub, in or out?
Non-public out. Yeah. So it.
Okay.
Yeah. So anything excluded under RSA 91A5, they are excluded from.
Okay.
Yeah. I can give you the statute or the RSA real quick. I have it up. Hang on. Somewhere. I've been RSA 193. Nope, sorry. 194.23F. Of course.
I have a question on the change you made for age requirements.
Yes.
It currently is
15.
15, but you want to bring it down to 14. Why is that?
There are a lot of freshmen and younger sophomores in high school that would be interested in LIAC but are currently excluded. So this would widen the net a little bit, and it would give them an opportunity to get involved at a younger age. And I think that's an incredibly good thing if they want to.
Thank you.
Question not necessarily for you, James, but for us. You suggested education credits
Mhm.
for being on LIAC. I don't think that's within our purview. I think that has to come out of DOE, not telling them you must give credits. You can consider it if you think it fills a bill.
So how I drafted the amendment is it says the Office of the Commissioner of Education shall develop a framework to allow for membership on the council or any other youth advisory council under the state of New Hampshire to be considered for high school credit and volunteer hours in public charter, and private secondary schools, including fulfillment of the civic education graduation requirement. So it says it would just develop a framework to allow for that to happen. That does not mean that the schools necessarily have to adopt it, although I'm sure that would be encouraged. Oh. No. Yeah. Yep. I try.
Are there any other additional information you'd want us to talk
Um,
about today?
So as Representative Tierney pointed out, as the amendments I wrote are currently written, I did include sophomore members because there was a concern about that experience piece. But I would honestly, after hearing Representatives Wheeler and McDonald speak, I would encourage striking that and making it just the youngest members or the youngest willing members. I think that makes a lot more sense. And I would also say that having the third advisory member, as I also have in this in these amendments, as I was thinking about, would be very valuable. Senate member, absolutely critical. I would not support striking that. And I would also point out, just so everyone is aware, because I feel like there was maybe a little bit of confusion earlier, the legislative members do not hold a vote on LIAC, except currently with Representative Nelson serving as the legislative co-chair. She holds a vote, and this is in our rules, this isn't in statute. She holds a vote only when there's a tie, so she can be a tiebreaker. And that's what we would, and that's something that we all voted to approve because it says in the statute that we can't establish our own rules beyond the statute.
Okay, so the advisor is the one that breaks the tie. You remember?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So she's the legislative co-chair, serving alongside me as youth co-chair. And how I currently have it written in this version of the bill is the youngest member from the majority party would get the tie-breaking vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Now I'm having a more senior moment than you. I've got to remember what the heck I wanted to bring up. I disagreed with one of the things you said there.
Okay. Let me, oh yeah, I would also point out that in both versions of the bill, both the amended version and what's currently introduced, if there are not enough applications to fill either the secondary or post-secondary vacancies, then members can be appointed regardless of their post-secondary or secondary status.
Okay. Jenny?
Can you repeat, not what you just said, but what you said in your previous statement, just at the beginning, because that's where I had the,
Regarding the voting power of the legislative members?
no, it was that last statement beforehand. I know it was right at the beginning of it,
I,
too.
I said that, I believe I said that Representative Nelson holds a tie-breaking vote in the case of a tie.
Earlier,
Earlier.
much earlier.
It's generous of you to assume that my memory's that good.
Okay.
We were talking about dropping the age from 15 to 14.
I think that was the immediate last thing, I think.
15 to 14 is no problem, because you do have, heck, when I went up, high school, I was 13 years old.
Oh, wow.
No, you turn 14 until 3 weeks after high school started.
Oh, gotcha.
9/22.
9/27. I wasn't 16 until senior year of high school.
Wow.
Wasn't the age part, that was okay, but you made another comment.
Um,
It'll come to me tonight.
yeah. That's how it goes, isn't it? Um, but oh yeah, there is one section, so it says, the officers shall make appointments that foster geographic and socioeconomic diversity. That's how the statute currently reads. We struck socioeconomic and replaced it with ideological, because, you know, we can measure ideological diversity a lot easier than we can measure socioeconomic diversity.
Right,
So,
we don't ask people what their parents' incomes are.
yeah. It was weird that was there in the first place.
One thing I'd like to add in there is that a member must come, as long as there are applicants, from each county.
Yeah, so
There should be, and that should be in the statute, so that they can't all be, no offense to anybody that's south of the notches, but other than when the Secretary of State said, hey, there's nobody from the North Country.
Yeah. No, I totally agree, and I think there absolutely needs to be geographic diversity in statute, and it says it, but clarifying that language a bit more. But I think the big issue is finding those members, and that's where we're struggling right now. So I believe it was Representative Wheeler who mentioned it earlier, the idea of having meetings outside of the State House, outside of the LOB, and trying to like take it on the road, if you will, and have meetings in other places. And that's something that we are trying to do for the rest of this council year. So next month, we're trying to have a public forum on mental health education and suicide prevention in schools. We're looking at Pinkerton Academy or St. Anselm College for that. But we're also looking in the future, you know, April, May, June, July, having more of those more north facing.
As we don't have a budget, that is one of our
Mhm.
challenges. One of our college folks looked into UNH donating a room for that purpose, and they wanted to charge us $800. So that is one of our challenges. We certainly aren't focusing on having a location in southern New Hampshire, but we're looking for a place that will actually donate room
Yes.
space.
Suggest talk to Plymouth State,
Yeah, I've been in
and
contact with them.
also talk to WMCC up in Berlin, White Mountains Community College. They might,
Mhm.
they have done it, and if they don't, you might want to ask, I don't know how many folks you get that normally attend your things,
Mhm.
but I do know that the Selectmen's Meeting Room in Groveton has a capacity of 88 people. Okay, there's a $25 fee, but all you have to do is ask the selectmen to waive that, and it generally is done if there's a legitimate reason. But Lancaster, theirs, I believe, can hold way more than that.
Mhm.
If you get groups that are in the 200 range, I believe their meeting room is also a theater that they use. You might be able to ask them, and that moves it into where North Country folks will come visit and talk.
Yeah, absolutely. We love that. And we are trying to get,
But you could use those type
Mhm.
places also throughout the state,
yeah,
and you're liable to find that they might be free.
That is incredibly helpful. Thank you so much, because that is something we've been struggling with, trying to find places to hold these meetings. Because when we hold them at the LOB, we get nobody, and that's not good for our outreach. So being able to hold this in other places, trying to get more parts of the state would be incredibly valuable for us. And so, yeah, I have been in touch with PSU, but our original thought was UNH, and they wanted to charge us $800 plus facilities fees plus insurance, which is surprising because, I mean, granted, this was 10 years ago, but we actually did host LIAC meetings at UNH. And there was a point in our, like, I don't know when it was repealed, but there was RSA 19K5 that said that we had a bank account and we could accept donations. And I imagine it was for that purpose, to rent out rooms or what have you. But that got repealed. I tried communicating with one of the original sponsors of the LIAC bill, as Representative Nelson said, and I could not get in touch with her to find out exactly why that was.
Question. If this committee, for example, were to have a meeting elsewhere, or Fish and Game, let's say, where they went somewhere else, are they covered by insurance if they, from the state?
I don't believe that they can.
So,
Because all of our, is that right? Our committee meetings have to be,
Think of that we would have a committee meeting other than here is the finance committee in the past has had budget hearings in different locations in the state with the goal of, making it more accessible to folks who live up north or whatever. That's been in years past, maybe even pre-COVID, and redistricting, the redistricting committee every 10 years, they'll meet August.
What about commissions? They meet all over.
Yeah, I belong to the Special Committee on Childcare, and we had road trips. We had one in Manchester, we had one in Hampton, and another one up north. So that's.
I mean, the type of insurance that, what I'm talking about is the liability insurance, for the building and stuff like that, not individual insurance, but if the state covers vision or something like that, maybe we also need to look at including LIAC into it, so that they can move around if they can find spots to do.
so I will say that the reason that UNH wanted us to get the insurance was because we will have high schoolers present, and I think it was individual liability insurance. I'm not 100% certain on that, but I was told by our member who was looking into that it was specifically because high schoolers were going to be present.
thank you. Okay, we're coming to 11:30. Are there any other additional comments that anybody would like to add? No? Okay, so I'm going to close the subcommittee hearing for today. Thank you.